What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's finally that time of year where the temperatures start to hit below freezing, and I'm sure you all get this feeling, this car instinct every winter, where you just feel it's time to bring in a car into the garage and start working on your project. Finally, going to start to work on the Rabbit once again after enjoying it the entire summer. After 2 years of actually going to Wilkins in the Woods and a bunch of other local events. It's been a while since I posted a video on this thing, but it's been an adventure so far. It's so much fun to drive, and it's finally time to, like I said, to make those improvements, make some new mods, and finally get it running right because surprisingly, it's been running lean this entire time. I'll reveal later on what's the first steps with that because it has the 3.6 FSI out of a 2011 Passat. It requires a lot of work, a tune, some fueling adjustments, some other mods that we never messed with before, so it's gonna be our first time messing with that. I already got a few parts lined up in the garage, but before we get into that, I just want to give you guys a quick look at the car once again. Like I said, it's been 2 years since I posted a video, so if you're not on following us on our social medias, you probably don't even know what this thing has looked like and the things we've done to it. So here's the Rabbit for everyone that has not seen it in the past 2 years. Obviously, completely different car, completely unrecognizable from what it used to look like 2 years ago, both interior and exterior as well. So many changes that we've done to it the past 2 years, but obviously the most noticeable thing on the outside is the Bird Cup kit. We decided to move on from the Cabrio Clipper kit. So one of the reasons we decided to go with the Bird Cup kit was so eventually we could fit some wider wheels up front. These 15x8s, even with the Toyo Archer blades, just weren't getting us the right amount of traction to put down because with this engine it's way too massive for this car. It's way too much power. We're spinning tires first, second, third gear when you floor it. So way too much power with this car. So hopefully some wider wheels will help balance that out eventually. But obviously, aside from the performance aspect, I just love how this kit looks on the car. Always loved how the Bird Cup kits look on the Mark 1. So I'm glad to finally get my hands on one of these kits. So we've done a few changes up here in the engine bay as well. They're subtle, you probably would have noticed them from a cosmetic point of view, but when it comes to drivability, they've been absolutely massive. So the first thing we've done, we converted this car to power steering. I believe all the Mark 1 GTIs came factory without power steering, so now it does. You can see over here the two hydraulic lines over here running to the pump. And it's probably been the most massive change we've done to this car performance-wise. Finally able to control the steering wheel when you floor it. Obviously doesn't put down the traction, but at least it's not pulling the wheel with it. With all the power being putting down, it was uncontrollable. Like I said, first, second, third gear, the steering wheel would just be pulling to the sides, and it was not fun. You really couldn't enjoy the car at all. And I mean, you saw the biggest difference over in Wilkins in the Woods with all the turns, the stopping and going. Night and day difference, honestly. I highly recommend it for anyone else that has a swap cylinder to this, a 3.2, 3.6, even a 2.8 VR would really help. We also decided to build a custom heat shield for the colder intake. We were getting a weird readings from the MAF. It was starting to misfire. I'm assuming the fan was pushing hot air into the MAF. We adapted a Mark III 2.0 cluster onto it as well. Completely 100% works. The coolant temperature, the speedometer, RPMs, fuel gauge, everything's 100% functional on it. A big thank you to TDC Shop for providing the harness and the brackets necessary to do this adaptation. You also need a tach adapter as well that he supplies. So yeah, definitely get in contact with him if you want to do something like this to your modified Mark 1s. So I'm going to start with taking care of the lean issue that I mentioned to you all earlier. So let me show you guys what I got going so far. I'm going to be replacing the fuel tank on the car. Well, first of all, because the fuel tank is the original one on the car, thing is 40 years old now, so it's probably a good idea to replace it anyways. But what makes this one special in particular is because I got this adapter welded onto it. Once again, thank you to TDC Shop. I could mention him a million times with this build. Honestly, he's been such a massive help. But this adapter right here is going to allow us to install a fuel pump from a Mark IV So I know the engine isn't from a Mark IV, so I'm going to be explaining that later on, what we're going to be doing to the fuel pump from the 2011 Passat with the 3.6 in order for that fuel pump to fit into this Mark IV housing. Managed to source this fuel pump from a 2011 Passat. It was at a junkyard, thankfully, so it was a steal. These things are like $400 brand new. I got this for 50 bucks. So this is going to be the proper fuel pump for the car. All right, got the car up on jack stands now. I'm going to start taking that old fuel tank out. I'm going to start with draining the fuel first. Anything from there on, I really don't know what to do. It's my first time dropping a fuel tank on any car, so let's see how it goes. So this is the fuel tank right here, right behind the rear axle. This right here is a filler hose. I still have to disconnect this, but the fuel pump is out, and the fuel filter as well. So I think now it's just a filler hose right here, and two more hoses that are vents as well, I believe. So it's almost ready to come out. So I managed to get the fuel tank completely disconnected, got all the hoses out. It all came out pretty easy, but unfortunately, after some more examination, looks like the rear beam is gonna have to come out after all. I was really hoping we could have just slid it out like from the front of the beam, but it looks like there's not gonna be enough space. So yeah, already running into some problems. Only the second day in, but yeah, there's no really way around it. I looked up some other tutorials online. Looks like everybody drops the rear beam, so yeah, there's no way around it. Might even have to drop the exhaust too, so because it has a 3-inch, it's pretty thick, it takes up a lot of space. So yeah, gonna have to get started on that. Thankfully, I left the brake lines soaking in PB Blaster last night, so it shouldn't be too bad to loosen up. So I'm just worried about having to bleed the brake system once again once the entire car is put back together. That's why I didn't want to disconnect the brake system. But I was reading online that if you have a prop rod or something just to put some type of pressure on the brake pedal, that should keep it from leaking out once you disconnect the fuel lines. You can kind of think about it like if like with a straw, when you dip it into your soda and then you hold one side and you lift it up and none of the soda comes down from the other side. It's kind of like that, because when you put pressure on the brake pedal, you're closing out the ends from the master cylinder into the brake lines. So I'm gonna give it a try, see what happens. Managed to find this stick we just had laying around in the corner of the garage, so it's doing the job. It's got some pressure on the brake line, so it should be good to go. I got the rear beam out finally. Decided to not take off the coilover, just loosen them up from the top just to make it a little bit easier and not mess with the sway bar. Don't forget to take out the e-brake cables if you're doing this by yourself. And yeah, it looks like just to almost ready to take down the fuel tank. Looks like it's just the two straps holding it on. You can see one nut right there, it's about to come out loose. I already got the one on this side out, so yeah, it's gonna take out this nut and should be ready to come down. Alright, finally got the fuel tank out. This is the heat shield right here. I'm going to be reusing this on the new gas tank. And yeah, as you can see right here, this is actually the fuel level sending unit. So on these cars it's actually separate, and then on the newer ones, the other fuel pump that we're going to be putting on, the sending unit and the fuel pump is all going to be sitting right here, instead of having the sending unit here and then the fuel pump was external sitting on the side. So I'm going to start to mess with that fuel pump so you guys can see what's going on and how this is going to work. We also have a Corrado in here actually. So it's a G60. It's an 8 valve 1.8 with the supercharger out of it, all factory. Super interesting cars. Always wanted a Corrado honestly, but I heard it's pretty tough to get parts for these things. Like if you need a bumper or a fender or any type of even interior pieces, they're super tough to come by and expensive. The interior in this thing is super nice. 5-speed too. Super clean. Yeah, this thing was like the flagship model for Volkswagen back in the day in the early 90s. So yeah, they definitely took their time with these. So they're really well made. It even has a this spoiler raises up at a certain speed too. So nice cars. All right, the fuel pump finally arrived in the mail. This is going to be the one that we're going to be reusing the outside, basically the housing of. This is from a Mark IV. And then this over here is the fuel pump from the 2011 Passat with the 3.6. What we're basically going to be doing is taking out this fuel pump right here from the 3.6, from the Passat, and putting it over here with the Mark IV housing. So this housing can fit into the fuel tank over there with the flange that I got welded on. Alright guys, here's the final fuel pump after messing with this thing for about an hour or two. The 3.6 fuel pump was actually a direct fitment to where the Mark IV fuel pump was. Like the same clips actually clip onto it from the original housing, which was surprising. The exact same dimensions. Only thing is I'm going to have to reroute the return line up here. Before it used to go right into the fuel tank, but now it goes into the fuel pump housing. So I'm gonna have to run a hose over the fuel tank into the fuel pump up here. But everything is pretty much the same. Also gonna have to route the fuel line up here that is a supply. And yeah, unfortunately I'm not gonna be able to install it today. I would love to get the tank up, get the car running, see how it runs with the new fuel tank and the fuel pump. But unfortunately, I need this connector up here that's specifically for a Mark IV, and I do not have one. So I'm going to have to make a junkyard run tomorrow, hopefully. And I'm also going to need another one of these. This is like a connector that clips onto here to the supply. And it pretty much does a function where, with this angle right here, because it's so tight, where the fuel tank sits in the body, this pretty much eliminates any type of restrictions right here. So I got to find another one of these. I have one here, but this one is a bit too small. You can probably see it right here. This one's a bit too small, and I don't want to risk the fuel system having any sort of restrictions. So I'm gonna have to make a junkyard run tomorrow. And yeah, here it is, so you guys can get an idea of it. Connections right here for the power and ground for the fuel pump. And then these two are for the leveling to see the level of the gas. This piece over here is gonna clip over here like this. And that's gonna be what measures the level of the fuel inside the gas tank. Alright, that's gonna be it for this video. I just want to get this video out as soon as possible. So just so you guys know that I'm uploading more videos. I'm going to be updating you all on the project, walking you guys along the entire process that it is to really complete this 3.6 swap, because to this point it's not 100% complete, and I want to show you all what the process is. So if you guys ever decide to do the same swap on your Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, whatever it is, I can give you guys all the information that you need with what we learned here, and as well as the information that we gather from other sources like TT Shop. Also, another big help has been the 3.6 that Corrado Ali, I believe his name is, on Vortex. Yeah, surprisingly, I know about Vortex, even though I was probably, that was like the generation behind, before me that really was into Vortex. But I still read the forums on there. Surprisingly, a lot of useful information on there. So hopefully that forum stays on for as long as possible for as many people to see. But yeah, the Corrado Alley 3.6 swap guide has been a big help as well. Been reading it through his forums with the fuel system as well and wiring. So I'll probably link those below so you guys can see those for yourself if the written version is a little bit easier to understand than a video. But yeah, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. You know, the usual like, share, subscribe. It will really help out the channel, get this video out to more people so they can really see what it is like to swap an engine like this into an old car. Yeah, that's going to be it, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.